Samoan archipelago is thought to have been initially settled by our ancestors some 3,000 years ago, who had occupied islands at least as far west as the Admiralties off the north shore of New Guinea. These early settlers were skilled seafarers, and after settling in Samoa for approximately 1,500 years, they began to migrate east to colonize the Central Society Islands between AD 1025 and 1120, and dispersed to New Zealand, Hawaii, and Rapa Nui, and other locations between AD 1190 and 1290. The settling of the Eastern Pacific and Polynesia is one of the most remarkable achievements of humanity. While Europeans were sailing up and down the coastlines of continents, voyagers from Samoa began to settle islands in an ocean area of over 10 million square miles. The settlement took 1,000 years to complete and involved finding and fixing in mind the position of islands, sometimes less than a mile in diameter, on which the highest landmark was a coconut tree. By the time European explorers entered the Pacific Ocean in the 16th century, almost all the habitable islands had been settled for hundreds of years. The voyaging was all the more remarkable in that it was done in canoes built with tools of stone, bone, and coral. The canoes were navigated without instruments by expert seafarers who depended on their observations of the ocean and sky, and traditional knowledge of the patterns of nature for clues to the direction and location of islands. The canoe hulls were dug out from tree trunks with adzes or made from planks sewn together with a cordage of coconut fiber twisted into strands and braided for strength. Cracks and seams were sealed with coconut fibers and sap from breadfruit or other trees. An outrigger was attached to a single hull for greater stability on the ocean. Two hulls were lashed together with cross beams, and a deck added between the hulls to create double canoes capable of voyaging long distances. The canoes were paddled when there was no wind, and sailed when there was. The sails were woven from coconut or pandanus leaves. These vessels were seaworthy enough to make voyages of over 2,000 miles along the longest sea roads of Polynesia, such as the one between Hawaii and Tahiti. And though these double-hulled canoes had less carrying capacity than the broad-beamed ships of the European explorers, the Polynesian canoes were faster. One of Captain Cook's crew estimated a Tongan canoe could sail 3 miles to our 2. The first recorded European rediscovery of the Samoan Islands occurred in 1722, when Dutch navigator Jacob Roggeveen of the Dutch West India Company sighted several of the Samoan Islands. He was followed by French explorers Louis-Antoine de Bougainville in 1768, who named the islands the Navigator Islands, as he admired the way the Samoans handled their canoes. Up to this point, all contact with the Europeans had been on the ships of the explorers, as the locals would paddle outrigger canoes out to meet them. In 1787, an expedition led by Jean-François de La Pérouse made landfall in the villages of Fagasa and Aasu on the northern shore of Tutuila Island. La Pérouse's 2 frigates anchored first in sight of Fagasa Bay, and many exchanges took place with the islanders. Then his boats landed under escort at the far end of the bay to fill the ship's casks with fresh water. According to La Pérouse, everything went well at Fagasa, although he found these islanders were too unruly to send ashore cutters and boats, which could only be backed up by gunfire from the ships. It is now understood that La Pérouse let himself be convinced by one of his crew to send his men ashore. On December 11th, a new watering point was planned in Aasu Bay, 5 miles to the west. It was in Aasu that La Pérouse's crew met a much larger group of Samoans, and ultimately fighting broke out, and La Pérouse lost 12 men. The cause of the skirmish is said to have been a result of an earlier event that occurred during the landing in Fagasa. At the time, there was a visiting delegation or group from Upolu, which consisted of many young men and warriors. One of these men paddled out to La Pérouse's ship, and after attempting to steal something off of La Pérouse's ship, he was ejected from the ship. Apparently, this did not sit well with the local, and when La Pérouse's second ship arrived in Aasu to replenish their water, this local had riled up the crowd. These tensions ultimately lead to the battle. The village of Aasu is known as Massacre Bay, and this event kept explorers at bay for an extended period of time. The first European Christian missionary, Englishman John Williams of the London Missionary Society, arrived in 1830. He and his followers had a profound impact on the Samoans and their culture. The National Register cites Atauloma Girls' School and Fagalele Boys' School at the western end of Tutuila were built by the LMS for the education of Samoan children in Christian life. Other Pacific Islanders came to Samoa as missionaries during this period. For example, Society and Cook Islanders working with the London Missionary Society, Tongans working with the Methodists. European traders and military personnel also affected Samoans. The First Samoan Civil War refers to the conflict between rival Samoan factions in the Samoan Islands of the South Pacific. The war was fought roughly between 1886 and 1894, primarily between Samoans fighting over whether Malietoa Laupepa or Mataafa Iosefo would be king of Samoa. Germany fought in Samoa in defense of Tamases, their choice for Tafaifa, the king of Samoa, after the reigning king Malietoa Laupepa was usurped and exiled. Tamases and his German allies faced a rival faction, headed by popular Samoan chief Mataafa Iosefo. Germany was looking to expand its new empire and its commercial interests. America, also looking to protect its commercial interests in Samoa, sent 3 warships, USS Vandalia, Trenton, and Nipsic, to monitor the island. Britain also sent a ship to protect its interests, HMS Calliope. Tensions heightened with the United States after a German shelling of Mataafa's rebel villages also resulted in destruction of American-owned property in 1887. One battle at Vailele in September 1888, following German bombardment of his rebel villages, resulted in Mataafa's warriors destroying an invading German contingent and plundering their plantations. Throughout the war, the German, American, and British ships were in a naval standoff known as the Samoan Crisis. The 3 Western powers finally agreed that Malietoa Laupepa would be restored as King of Samoa in 1889. 9 years later, with the death of Malietoa Laupepa, hostilities broke out again in 1898 in the Second Samoan Civil War. However, this conflict was quickly ended by the partitioning of the island chain at the Tripartite Convention of 1899. The German government had never made a secret of their belief that international control of Samoa was visionary and impractical, and they began a series of diplomatic moves intended to eliminate it altogether. German diplomats in Washington had ascertained during the summer of 1899 that the United States administration was satisfied with obtaining the island of Tutuila with its key asset, the existing coaling station at Pago Pago. With partitioning of Samoa by then the prevailing understanding, the United States expressed no objections to Britain and Germany coming to a preliminary agreement. A settlement was reached at London by the 9th of November and signed on the 14th of November. It was therefore this Anglo-German agreement on Samoa in tandem with the informal understanding with the United States that partitioned Samoa. It only remained for the 3 powers to negotiate a tripartite convention in order to secure the approval of the United States to the whole agreement. The Tripartite Convention of 1899 was duly constituted, and documents were signed December 2, 1899 in Washington by the U.S. Secretary of State John Hay, Baron Theodore von Holleben, German ambassador to the United States, and Sir Julian Pauncefote, British ambassador to the United States, with ratifications exchanged on the 16th of February 1900. U.S. Navy era, April 17, 1900, February 22, 1951. Initially called U.S. Naval Station Tutuila, the eastern islands of the Samoan archipelago were ceded to the United States in 1900, Tutuila, and 1904, Manua. On July 11, 1911, the islands were officially renamed American Samoa. American Samoa served as a coaling station and was administered by the U.S. Navy from 1900 to 1951. American Samoa was largely left to itself to the next few decades. As World War II began, American Samoa became an essential link in the chain of communications between the United States and its allies in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Holding the line drawn from Midway to Samoa, Fiji, and Brisbane against the Japanese was considered essential. The loss of these islands would have effectively cut off communications between the west coast of the United States and Australia. After the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, the governor and commandant of American Samoa assumed direct control of all construction work in progress on Tutuila and rechanneled the efforts into defense of Pago Pago Harbor and the immediate vicinity, particularly focusing on bomb-proof shelters. On January 11th, 1942, the naval station was shelled by a Japanese submarine which surfaced on the northern side of Tutuila, near the village of Fagasa. Very little damage was done, but in an odd stroke of irony, one of the shells struck the home and store of the Shimasaki family, one of the few Japanese families on island at the time. No casualties were reported. On January 20th, 1942, the Marines arrived with 5,600 officers and enlisted men equipped with heavy artillery and plans to fortify and protect the U.S. position in the South Pacific. Local Samoans were also recruited to form a Samoan Marine Brigade that consisted of 350 men. Tutuila Island became the largest jungle training center in the South Pacific. After the war, orders were given to begin the dismantling of the war effort in the Samoa Group, and the naval station had reverted to its peacetime status as a permanent base and refueling station. In the post-war era, American Samoa's military importance began to decline, and eventually the control of the territory was transferred to the Department of Interior, where it remains today. Not very much information is available about the relationship of the locals and the U.S. Navy administrators. However, on February 23, 1951, the Fono, Territorial Legislature, of American Samoa, in a program printed for the transfer of jurisdiction from the Navy Department to the Department of the Interior, paid this tribute to the Naval Administration. The Fono, on behalf of the people of American Samoa, wishes to place in the record of history the significance of the termination of 51 years of naval administration. Mutual respect, understanding, and cooperation has been the keynote of our long relationship. Our appreciation for the guidance and leadership of the Navy in helping American Samoa to move forward is deep-seated and everlasting. Turning its head to the past, Samoa is sorrowful to bid farewell to a good and loyal friend, the Navy. Department of Interior era, 1951, present. Despite the gratefulness of the Samoan people, the Navy apparently did very little to help fulfill the United States pledge to care for the people of American Samoa in return for their islands. As such, the Department of Interior's era began with a rather harsh wake-up call, which is best illustrated by an article written by Clarence W. Hall and published in the Reader's Digest in 1961. This article discussed the poor state of affairs in American Samoa at the time, and gives us insight as to who or what was responsible for the embarrassing neglect of the United States' only possession in the South Pacific. Mr. Hall then followed up this first story with another, published in 1965, detailing the rapid pace at which conditions were changing and improving in American Samoa. In 1977, the people of American Samoa took a major step towards self-determination and self-sufficiency, a key goal of Governor Rex Lee. Peter Tally Coleman, a local Samoan, was elected as the first governor of the territory. In 1981, American Samoa sent its first non-voting delegate to the U.S. Congress. Since that time, American Samoa has continued to grow and develop, learning to better govern itself in today's modern era. Like many small island developing states in the Pacific, American Samoa continues to face challenges due to its remote location, limited natural resources, and struggling economy. Leadership in both the public and private sector continue to improve as many Samoans travel abroad for education and experience, returning eventually to participate in moving the territory forward. The U.S. territory also continues to find its interests ignored by the U.S. federal government, or at least not well understood. Federal policies are enacted with little to no input from the territory, oftentimes directly impacting the territory's ability to build towards great self-sufficiency. Because of this and other factors, the territory is slowly beginning to evaluate its political status. At present, American Samoa remains an unincorporated, unorganized territory of the United States. Where American Samoa goes from here will depend largely on the next generation of leaders and the U.S.'s strategic goals for the region. Culture. American Samoa's islands make up the eastern part of the Samoan archipelago, whose people are Polynesian. Archaeologists state early Polynesians traveled from Southeast Asia into the Pacific, populating the islands of the western Pacific from Papua New Guinea to Tonga and Samoa. It was from Tonga and Samoa sometime later that they migrated east and populated the Cook Islands, Niue, Tahiti, and Rapa Nui, Easter Island, before heading north to Hawaii and south to Aotearoa, New Zealand, on the last legs of the Great Polynesian Migration. Today, Samoans are regarded as the largest full-blooded Polynesian race left in the world. Fa'a Samoa, or the Samoan Way, is the foundation of Samoan society, culture, and heritage. Aiga, or extended family, is the core of the Fa'a Samoa, where at the head of the family are matai, or chiefs, and each family member has their role to play in their tautua, or service to the extended family. Our customs and culture are over 3,000 years old and has changed very little over this period. The most major Western influence accepted into Samoan custom has been Christianity, which forms the spiritual basis of our society. Explore, experience, enjoy. Take a pre-booked tour of Maugawali'i Government House, the official residence of the Governor and First Lady. Visit the National Park of American Samoa on Tutuila and our outer Manua Islands. Take a drive from Pago Pago Harbor over to the village of Vatia and enjoy the breathtaking view of the harbor below. Drive towards the west and visit the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa at Fagatella Bay Lunch at Utulai Beach and enjoy the spectacular view of Pago Pago Harbor and Rainmaker Mountain experience. Some traditional Samoan food like palusami and taro found in some local eateries and at the farmers' marketplace in Fagatogo. With a map in hand, hop on a local bus and head east or west and take in the picturesque villages and explore, visit a local church on a Sunday morning and enjoy the rousing sermons and melodic singing. Let's go shopping for American and international goods at prices cheaper than anywhere else in the world and no sales tax to boot. American Samoa has an extensive U.S. naval history, so pick up a U.S. Naval History and World War II guide and explore and learn. Take a trip to the Manua Islands, half-an-hour flight east of Tutuila Island. Visit Ofu Beach in the Manua Islands, voted one of the most beautiful undiscovered beaches in the world. Catch a local Alia boat for the short trip to Aunuu Island and hike to the Quick Sand Lake. Take a ride in a traditional fotasi or long boat with 40-plus paddlers. See photo below. The view of Pago Pago Harbor from the water is one of the most spectacular in the Pacific, and nothing could be more so when you are viewing it from an outrigger canoe. Traditional Samoan garments, for women the pulatasi, two-piece long-fitted blouse and skirt, and for men, Samoan Island shirt are great gifts to take home. Take a drive up to the mountain village of Aoloao and take in the grand views of the Tafuna Plain below and the northern Pacific Ocean. Take a visit to the Gene P. Hayden Museum in Fagatogo and view the exhibit of American Samoa's link to the Apollo moon missions, complete with moon rocks. There's nothing like the hustle and bustle of local market, and the new Fagatogo Marketplace is a local favorite shopping spot. The thrill of catching some big game fish like tuna, marlin, and sailfish is only a half-hour boat trip from shore. There's nothing like taking a tour of a new destination to get a feel of what the place has to offer and get a glimpse and taste with the experts. So if you like high adventure, shopping, or something more relaxing, one of our many tour operators on island can help you out. For those wanting to see nature at its best, then check out North Shore Tours and Best Tours American Samoa. They have a range of tours available, from hiking the trails of National Park and Aunuu Island, giving you a guide tour of all the rainforest flora and fauna, kayaking or taking an outrigger ride on Pago Pago Harbor, and guiding you to some of the historic World War II sites around the island of Tutuila. If it's the adventure of the high seas you want, with some game fishing for marlin, wahoo, or masimasi, or diving, then Pago Pago Marine Charters are the boys you need to see. They have 3 boats available for hire with fully experienced captains to take you to some of the best untouched fishing and dive spots around Tutuila and the Manua Islands. For those that prefer a guided tour, is a local bus or private van. Pago Pago Tradewinds Tours and Alofa Tours can arrange those for you. Everything from shopping tours to visiting mountain villages and historic sites are just some of the itineraries they offer, as well as tailor-made options as well. Thank you for joining us in this video about the beautiful American Samoa. We hope you enjoyed exploring the rich culture, stunning landscapes, and vibrant traditions of this incredible place. If you found this video informative and inspiring, we kindly ask you to show your support by giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your likes and subscriptions mean a lot to us and help us continue creating more content about American Samoa and other amazing destinations. Don't forget to click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. By subscribing, you'll stay connected with us and be the first to know about our future videos. Remember, sharing is caring. If you have friends, family, or fellow travel enthusiasts who would enjoy this video, please share it with them. Let's spread the beauty and wonder of American Samoa to as many people as possible. Thank you once again for your support. We truly appreciate it, and we look forward to bringing you more exciting content in the future. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for our next adventure. Safe travels.